Hi everybody, it's Clarke Camper with the November edition of Wall Street and Washington. Today I'd like to focus on one particular matter that I've only touched on briefly in the past, and that is NYSE Euronext's efforts to advocate on behalf of our listed companies in Washington. Today I have with me my colleague Reagan Anderson, who leads our issuer advocacy efforts in Washington. Welcome, Reagan, to Wall Street and Washington.
Thank you.
First question I wanted to ask you about is about something that has been in the news quite a bit recently, and that is promotion of IPOs. I understand there is an IPO task force that was, I believe it's a private sector effort, commissioned, at least informally, by the White House, and I know that we have been very involved in that effort. Could you tell us about that?
I would love to. So in March, the Treasury Department hosted a roundtable discussion on access to capital, and the group that was there concluded at the end of the day that we really needed to look at the decline in IPOs and what that's meant for not only our capital markets, but also the U.S. economy. And so a group that was there pulled in a number of individuals from the private sector that touched the entire ecosystem of small cap companies and their strategies in terms of when they IPO, to study this issue and come up with a set of recommendations that we just presented to Congress and took back to the Treasury Department in October. And what's exciting right now is that we have translated those recommendations into a bill that we are optimistic will be introduced in the Congress shortly. Okay.
Can you say just a word about what is contained in those recommendations?
Absolutely. So what we're doing is something that's a little bit different from where we've been in the past. So we are not asking for any type of rollback of current regulations or scaling back. What we're asking is that for companies that have chosen to go public, that they be exempt from certain regulations for a period of 5 years. So that would allow them to access the capital markets without having to incur the significant costs associated with that. So we're talking about things like compliance with 404B of Sarbanes-Oxley. We're talking about some of the recently proposed Dodd-Frank initiatives, including disclosures on executive compensation, and we're also talking about changing the requirement for audited financials from a 3-year look back to 2 years. So, you know, a series of things that we think will really help reduce costs by 30 to 50% of a company that's preparing to go public, and we hope that that will help restart our IPO market.
Interesting. Yes, sounds sort of like an on-ramp, if you will, for smaller companies.
Absolutely.
As they grow and become larger.
Absolutely. So. It's a 5-year on-ramp, or we put 2 additional triggers in. So if a company reaches $1 billion in annual revenue, then that would trigger full compliance with everything that they've been exempt from for the first five years, or until they hit that revenue mark, or if they become a well-known seasoned issuer with the SEC.
Got it.
So we think that that is another indication that they're a big enough company that they're probably capable of complying fully.
Got it. Great. Sounds very good. Well, how about if we step back a little bit and look a little more on the macro level? I know NYSE Euronext has advocated always on behalf of our listed companies, particularly in the area of corporate governance, for instance. Could you say a little bit about what we're doing differently at this point in terms of our issuer advocacy? Sure,
absolutely. So what we did this year, it also was aligned with the ultimate goal in Washington that was laid out by the President in his State of the Union in January, that said, let's take a look at outdated regulations or policies that may be imposing great cost or burden on our companies. You know, let's make sure companies are leveraging the capital they have to grow, expand their companies, create jobs, and help, you know, contribute to the economic recovery. So what we did was we surveyed our CEOs, and we asked what issues they were specifically focused on in Washington this year, and then we've set up a series of events. We've done some of them in Washington. We've done some of them here at the NYSE, and we've actually taken the show on the road, so to say. We've done events in Virginia, we've done events in Michigan, but each event has had a specific theme. So we had a day where issuers came to Washington and talked about market structure issues and how they impact their businesses. We had a full day on the Hill one day that was focused entirely on tax policy, and we really got into a great debate on you know, repatriation and corporate tax reform, and you know, when that's likely to happen in Congress. And I think we'll continue to plan events that we hear from the issuer community about. You know, we did something recently with a group of 10 issuers that were concerned about a specific rulemaking out of the SEC, and they came to Washington, spent the day on the Hill, and I think had a very productive day.
Wow, sounds interesting. Well, how about before we wrap it up, let's say that we have a listed company who's watching right now, how would they get involved in our issuer advocacy efforts?
Well, we have just launched a web page that you can access through our website that is dedicated to the issuer advocacy program, and our email addresses and phone numbers are there, so they can find us that way.
Terrific. Good. Well, that's very helpful, Reagan. Thank you very much for informing us about the issuer advocacy efforts, and thank you, viewers, for watching. We will see you next month on Wall Street and Washington.